Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. It's coffee time. Actually, this is my second cup. And if you don't mind, subscribe. Well, you know, everybody that's been following my channel knows I've been here quite some time. And you kind of lose touch of things after being here for a while. And it's hard to give advice on people who've never been here, because you've lost that edge of living in your home country, in my case, in the U.S. I've been asked several times, what's it take to live here? Well, the first thing is attitude. You thought it was going to be money, didn't you? No, attitude is the big factor. Money would probably be second or third. Now, we will talk about the money factor. Not like it was when I came here. When I came here in 2010, January. Actually, January 2nd, if you want to know. It was easy to live on $1,000 a month. Actually, you'd live a semi-luxury life. You could travel. You could do things. Rent a reasonable place. Now, you wouldn't have no luxury condo or something like that, but you could actually find housing very affordable. I rented several places for $125 to $150 a month. That was quite nice. I don't think those days exist anymore. At least I've not seen any. Even over here in the provinces, I think about the least I've seen. Let me try to do the math in my head here. It's closer to $300. So, and the price of electricity. When I first came here, I ran an air conditioner 24/7 in places I lived in at that time in the early years, plus a refrigerator and other conveniences. And it was rare to get a power bill over $50 or 2,500 pesos. Now, it's easy to cap $100 plus and cutting back, not even using the air conditioner. Even here, my electricity is still will hit $50, and most of my electricity is solar. Like I said, I've lost touch on how to recommend how much money you need to be here. There's other issues too. You're going to have to be prepared for health issues. You do need to have a reserve, because in most cases they're going to ask you to pay up front and let you collect from, if you have insurance, if you're fortunate enough to have insurance, let you collect from your insurance company if you have a health problem or accident or whatever. I had a memory come up in my Facebook, and it made me think about all these things. 7 years ago, I was in the hospital for dengue. Fortunately, I was on my wife's field health at the time. Now that has changed. I got by on staying for a week in the hospital. I think out-of-pocket expenses was a little over 20,000 pesos, roughly $400, something like that. and PhilHealth picked up the rest of the tab. My bill was over 100,000 pesos. I can't remember the exact figures now, but I do remember PhilHealth shocked me on how much it paid. That ain't gonna happen anymore. PhilHealth probably won't cover 10 to 15% now, and you pay more for it. I'm talking about foreigners. PhilHealth right now, it costs me 17,000 pesos per year, roughly $400, I think, something like that, a little for it. Compared to when Grace and I were on the same policy, I think we paid, time to do the math here, it was 1,200 pesos per quarter, so it'd been, say, $30. It covered Grace and I and Virgil. And even now, if Grace was to get in the hospital, or Virgil, well, we had an example with Virgil. He was in the hospital for the beginning of our project here, and PhilHealth only covered wasn't even 10%. And even their PhilHealth, it cost us, it's doubled, over doubled, I think about 2,500 pesos per quarter, and where it used to be 1,200, and it covered more, coverage was more. So that's a little example about some of the expenses you will acquire now compared to when I first came here. It was much easier. Of course, you still got to deal with immigration too when you come. So you want to extend your visa, which is easy to do. Normally you would do it every 2 months. There is 6 months extensions, and I don't know the current, but I think it's around 3,000 pesos or thereabout every 2 months, roughly. Like I said, it's hard for me to give you exact numbers because I don't do it. Because I'm a 13A, as they call it, which is permanent resident, which is the price on that hasn't changed much from my understanding. You're looking at if you happen to have a Filipino wife or spouse, you're looking at the initial cost of $250, 11,000 pesos, if you do all this yourself. And that's for the probationary period for 1 year. Once approved, you don't have to deal with immigration except for the first 60 days of the year. You do have to go and report in with immigration and pay 310 pesos, $6. I do that every year in January or February. I know I had a friend of mine thought it meant from the time you was approved that you had 1 year, then you go in then. No, it's always January or February. I had a hard time explaining that to him. And, he finally understood and done his deal. And then you're going to have, if you have a kind heart, you're going to help your, if you happen to have a Filipino, you're going to help their family out some. You know, I do help a Grace's family out some. It's not a great deal. It's not. It's funds that I don't even miss, because basically, you know, we buy food, and we probably would spend close to the same amount, even without them. Her mom and dad actually lives here, and sister. So it's not really anything I miss. I mean, if we wouldn't support them, it probably wouldn't make over a $50 a month difference, if that. So giving you advice on how much money you need, well, You're going to be renting in most cases. And keep in mind, foreigners cannot own property. Also, they're not allowed to work without a work permit. And then even at that, they're limited on the jobs that are available. Usually it's something that a Filipino cannot do. You cannot take a spot that a Filipino can actually do the job. I know it sounds a little weird, but it is. That reminds me, some of the job requirements here for Filipino posted. It's unreal what they ask for. You know, for a simple cashier, once you have 2 years of college, and if you're female, you got to be 5'2". If you're male, you got to be 5'6", I think. Can't be over age 25. Got to be single, no kids. You see a lot of jobs posted like that. And then it's only a 6-month contract. And it's up to you to go get your physical and all the other little requirements they require, and you pay for your uniform, depending on the job. They do have dress codes that you have to follow. It's crazy. I mean, well, it's not crazy, but it's unusual. It's an expense they have to go through just to get a job. No, they can get an education and get a more secure job. And then it's not really that secured. But getting back to what you can expect coming here, you have to have an open mind, because they say it's going to be entirely different. Driving habits. If you come here, I don't recommend driving anything for at least a year. You need to get well aware of the conditions driving here. If you want to buy a vehicle, hire a driver. That's highly recommended, because if you're in an accident, even if you're sitting still, more than likely you're going to be to blame. I've seen that happen. And once you see what goes on in your driving, you will understand why I say that. It's unreal. Even after all this time I've drove, it's still shocking at times. Now, like I said, you're going to have the attitude to live here. It's different. Things are going to be different. It's going to be slower. It's going to be confusing. Getting a bank account. We're accustomed to going into a bank, showing our IDs and so forth, depositing money, and going on about our business. Now you're a foreigner, you're required to have what they call the ACR card. It means you're registered alien certificate of registration, plus your passport, and another ID probably, and pictures, and they'll ask you all kinds of questions, and it's a pretty intense process. I'm not opening an account in a long time, so it's changed a lot. From what I've read online, people are having a difficult time. Now, that's another thing I want to talk about too. If you're coming here to live permanently, if you have no ties left behind, I'm talking about real estate and investments and stuff like that, if you have none of that to have to be doing, staying on top of, you might consider getting an account here. Open it with reliable banks. Recommend the major banks. BPI, PNB, Metro, I'm trying to think of others, BDO. There's a lot of good banks that's been here for 100 year plus. Now, I use personally BPI and PNB. The reason I chose those two banks, is, believe it or not, some of the banks, if you open an account up, and if you need to do over-the-counter business, you have to do it at the branch you open it at. That could be an inconvenience, especially like when I first come here. Grace and I travel around, and we could do over-the-counter transactions at any branch, and that was quite convenient. Now, if we've been with some of the other banks, that wouldn't have been possible. That means it would cut our little vacation short, and we'd have to go back home in order to be next to the branch that we opened. Because if you're on another island, like we was at the time, and needed to access your money, and in my case, I had to do it personally, because I have direct deposit. That's a requirement. You have to go in personally. And so it makes it pretty convenient. Now, we do have not only my personal direct deposit, we do have a peso account. So we have the ATM, which the card can be used in some stores and so forth also, which is very handy, especially during COVID. It was a major help, because we couldn't cross the border, go to the bank. So we just let my Social Security funds build up 2 or 3 months at a time before we go in and exchange it and put it back into our ATM, which took a lot of pressure off us. But anyway, thought I'd mention a few things here that might be of help if you decide to come in here, whatever. Comment if you want. But I do enjoy everybody, and I really appreciate all my subscribers. So if you don't mind, subscribe.